One Bills Live. John Murphy at home. Steve Tasker's at home. Chris Brown's at home. It's a new way to do radio. And Chris Brown on the air with us right now. Bills Insider from BuffaloBills.com. Steve, what do you got? You got a question for Chris, right?
Yeah, I was going to ask you about one of the signings, and we're going to just go down the list and see what your thoughts are. Let's start with Seattle Seahawks. Quintin Jefferson. He's 26, 6'4", 291 pounds. He's kind of a guy that, was one of those developmental guys. 2016 for the Seahawks, he played in 3 games. He didn't play in any games in 2017 when he was with the Rams. Back to the Seahawks, he got into 6 games. And then the last 2 years, 2018, 2019, he played a ton and was pretty productive for those guys. What are your thoughts on Quintin Jefferson?
Yeah, I mean, he was kind of a rotational guy that moved up and down the front for them, started some games last year, and, trying to take him out of that situation and plug him into the Bills situation, I see him in kind of a similar role, a guy that can move up and down the line, whether he's, backing up Ed Oliver as a 3 technique, whether you want to put him on the edge, maybe in a run-heavy situation where the run's coming, and set the edge for you. This is a guy that you can move up and down the line, really kind of a chess piece for Leslie Frazier, knowing how much he likes to rotate those guys up front.
Chris, the other defensive lineman signed by the Bills last night, Jordan Butler. What do you know about him? What do you like about him?
Yeah, it's interesting because, this guy was a late first-round pick in 2016 and was playing behind a lot of veteran players. Couldn't get on the field. He's playing behind guys like Kawan Short, a Pro Bowl-type defensive tackle, and Star Latulele when he first started his career there, and simply could not crack the starting lineup, and you understand why. But last year, he did get into the starting lineup under Bill's current defensive line coach, Eric Washington, who was the defensive coordinator down there in Carolina the last 2 seasons, and really put together a solid year to the point where I think this coaching staff, obviously with Eric Washington now a part of it and intimately familiar with what Butler can bring to the table, I think this is a guy who can be, he's going to be in a position where I think he's going to push Starr for that 1 technique role in this 4-3. I mean, he set career highs last year in sacks with 6, quarterback hits with 8, and tackles for loss with 7. Now, those aren't off-the-charts numbers, but we got to remember this is a mountain of a human being at 6'4" and 330 pounds. The guy takes up space. So I think this guy is going to be in that mix in that 1 technique spot. And you think about it, guys, I think Harrison Phillips last year opened the coaching staff's eyes to what he could be. I think they saw him as a 1 technique plugger type. And I think he proved he could be more than that for this football team. And so it wouldn't surprise me if they look at Butler and Starr strictly as 1 technique guys and move Harrison Phillips back and forth, and maybe he plays a little more 3 technique in rotation with Ed Oliver. And I wonder, guys, too, if this isn't a possibility. Ed Oliver moving out to the edge of the formation and coming off of the edge. I know he doesn't have length, and so his time out there might be somewhat limited, but it wouldn't shock me to see some pass rush packages with Harrison Phillips inside and Ed Oliver maybe getting some snaps on the edge here and there.
I like the way you're thinking, Chris. One more thing, Chris, the extended contract for Jordan Poyer, obviously expected, anticipated, deserved, and I think all of us now wait for the next move with Tre'Davious White and Matt Milano. Maybe after the draft? What do you think?
Yeah, I'm getting the sense that it's going to be after the draft. I think the focus now, although there'll still be an ear to the ground in free agency, should something unexpected, shake out of the trees and become available that they weren't anticipating, I think the focus does now shift to the draft for the Bills. And granted, they're not going to be doing a whole heck of a lot. Brandon Beane will probably have his feet up on the desk for night 1 with no first-round pick now. But I think that they'll be readily prepared for what the depth of this draft has to offer, as I mentioned in the last segment. And then after that, I think they'll let the dust settle and say, okay, let's see what we can do here. And I think we also have to look at the history of what the Bills have done in terms of getting their guys under contract signed to extensions. The vast majority of them have taken place in late August and early September. whether you're talking about Eric Wood when he signed his extension in his last year. There have been other players last year. It's slipping my mind, but somebody signed an extension right before the season last year. So more often than not, they have re-upped players closer to the regular season than in the true off-season, per se. But I got to tell you, with this reported extension of Poyer, I can't think of a guy who deserves it more. I mean, he's been dynamic. I don't think people, even now, maybe in Buffalo, but around the league, I still don't think they understand what a difference maker he has been. I mean, over the last 3 seasons, Poyer is tied for second in the league among safeties in interceptions with 11. And he's also second on the Bills in interceptions since 2017. The only guy he's trailing is Tre'Davious White, who has 12. I mean, he has been all over the place, an excellent run filler, sometimes even serving as a third linebacker with the way he fills. And I just think it's well-deserved, and I'm happy to see the organization reward a guy like that.
Brownie, with all the things that have happened, this is completely, and Murph and I have been talking about it for weeks, and I'll bring you in on it. We've probably talked to you a little bit about this. The Bills are in a completely different spot than they were a year ago, where they had to bring in 9 new starters on the offensive side of the ball from week 17 of 2018 to week 1 of 2019, 9 new starters. It's not that way this year. So they've continued to fill holes with 6 defensive signings and this free agent. They've traded for Stephon Diggs. Now where are their holes? Where, if everything stays as is until the draft, what position do you think that they're going to be like pining for if somebody falls to them at whatever position may be?
Yeah, I mean, I think to a large degree it's depth. And, I mentioned that running back, you need depth there, although I think T.J. Yeldon is a more than capable backup to Devin Singletary. I just think he didn't get an opportunity all that much last year, and still a relatively young player at 26 years of age, even at the running back position. But I think they need depth there. I anticipate they'll find that in the form of youth in the draft. They need size at wide receiver. I think they'll find that in the draft, where there are plenty of big, tall, rangy type receivers that can be a mismatch in the passing game. And then beyond that, I'd like to see them invest in some youth at offensive tackle. And on the defensive side, when you think about it, guys, they have their youth depth type players on the roster already. Whether you're talking about Siran Neal, whether you're talking about Jaquan Johnson, everybody forgets about Vashawn Joseph, who was their 5th-round pick last year at the linebacker spot, but was on IR all last year. He comes back healthy. They re-signed the undrafted linebacker as a future free agent, Dodson, who I think is going to be in play to be a backup middle linebacker prospect. And then, another guy who a lot of people have forgotten about, who was on IR last year as well, who was having a monster training camp before he suffered an injury. Mike Love, guys, at the defensive end position, I think is going to be in play to fight for a role as well. So when you're thinking about an influx of youth, really on defense, the only place they got to do that is at cornerback, as I see it, somebody that can play on the boundary or field side. And then on offense, that's where you got to find some young players. And I think all of that, guys, to a vast degree, comes in the draft.
Everybody should cross their fingers now and start rooting that Chase Claypool lasts until 54. Is that realistic, Chris?
He looked good at the Senior Bowl, man. I like him, but
and
I mean, that guy.
Yeah, he's looked a little bit too good to last till 54.
I'm afraid,
that's the problem.
I don't. Where are the Bills? 54 or 58? I keep mixing those numbers up in round
54.
50. Yeah, I don't think he gets there, guys. I think he's gone in the first 40, 45 picks. I think the appeal and the shine on him is only going to get better as we get closer to the draft, because he is just a freakish mismatch. I mean, you put him on the field, and I don't know who you put up against him, knowing he runs a 4.42 and is 6'5" with he's got a shooting guard's body, and he was a super basketball player up in Vancouver, British Columbia. I mean, he was unbelievable. He was getting D1 offers left and right for basketball, and I just think he's a supremely unique player, and he was one of two receivers that really caught my eye at the Senior Bowl down in Mobile back in January.
Hey, Chris, thanks. Maybe we'll talk again tomorrow. Thank you very much.
All right, guys, be good. And a tip of the hat to your producer, Jay Harris. He is the lone wolf at One Bills Drive. I called him our Braveheart because they'll never take away his freedom.
Yeah. He got us on the air today. I don't know how. And you know what the cool thing is? They'll come up with a new way to do it tomorrow. He's not
All
satisfied.
right. I look forward to that. Kansas string.
Yeah, there you go.
Chris Brown, Bills Insider, BuffaloBills.com.